Everyone. Thank you for that. We're now recording. This is a meeting of the Concord Middle School Building Committee, and today is Thursday, September 8th, 2022. And I just want to say good morning. Sorry, I was on vacation the last meeting and my audio was so bad, but I'm back in Concord with a new computer, so bear with me today. Anyway, we're going to get underway. I will call roll. I'll call roll of everyone, and then on the votes, just note who the voting members are. So let's start with Alexa.
Present.
Good morning. Court Booth.
Present. Good morning.
And good morning, Heather Bout.
Good morning.
Good morning, Frank Cannon. I saw you, Frank. I see you, Frank. All right, Frank's here. Justin Cameron.
Good morning.
Good morning. I hope school's going well, Justin.
It's a strong start.
Good. I'm glad to hear it. Peter Fishalis. I see Peter. Can you hear us? No? Peter? He's rubbing his eyes like it's 7:30 in the morning. Peter, anyway, I'm calling roll and I see you drinking coffee, but I think maybe you can't hear us. Dawn Goriello, I'm here. John Harris.
Here.
Good morning. Russ Hughes.
Here.
Hello. Lori Hunter.
Good morning.
Good morning. Matt Johnson.
Present.
Hi, Matt. Carrie LaFleur.
Hi, Dawn. Good morning.
Hi. Good morning. Pat Nelson.
Here.
Good morning, Pat. Chris Popoff.
Morning.
Good morning. Charlie Parker.
Here.
Good morning. Matt Root.
Good morning.
Good morning. Bob Conry. Bob with us today, Lori, do you know?
He's planning to be, I thought.
Yeah? Okay. Steve Stashewski.
Here.
Hi, Steve. And Gail Dowd.
Good morning. I'm here.
Good morning. Just a point of clarity. I don't know when, Gail, I know at the select board you were named the finance director, not interim, right? Do I have that right? I want to make sure.
Treasurer.
Correct. I don't,
Treasurer.
Treasurer. Okay. So just for the record.
Treasurer will be effective October 1st. The
Oh,
CFO finance director was effective Tuesday.
Tuesday. Okay, I just want to make sure we still have her listed as interim finance director, and I'm realizing that her role has changed a little. So we'll work with Hill to get that updated for you,
Thank you.
Gail. And congratulations again. I know I said it in person, but congrats.
Thank you.
Sorry, Don,
You're
I'm
welcome.
here.
Oh, that's okay. Hi, how are you, Peter?
Good.
You were kind of drinking coffee, like no one was talking. I was like, maybe he can't hear us.
Have the volume all the way down.
Understood. I get it. Good morning, and thanks for pointing that out, Peter. Okay, so our first item on the agenda list after calling the meeting to order are the approving of the meeting minutes from August 18th, 2022 and 25th, 2022. Let's start with any edits to August 18th.
I've got a couple, but I think if anybody else has looked at them, tell me if you agree. I think we ought to send them back to have somebody review both of them. We've got a lot of minor errors, just typos, not stuff of substance, but sufficient in number. So I think they might go back.
Okay, Court, thank you. I found a few myself. Matt, yeah, Matt, I see your hand. Is that what you were going to point out?
There's a town called West Tisbury. I couldn't find the other one. I think West Tisbury was the town that was struggling with their budget, not, I don't know, Tinsboro or something like that. Tinsbury.
Yeah, it's West Tisbury on the Vineyard.
And yeah, things like council for town councils misspelled, exercise, a bunch of little typos here and there. But I just want to make a more general comment, which is it's very difficult to review a packet when it arrives the evening before a 7:30 a.m. meeting. I would really like to have at least a full business day before the meeting when we have the materials in hand.
I agree, Matt. And sometimes there's, I just know that sometimes the either information as far as cost or presentation as far as content may be, closer to the meeting. But as far as meeting minutes and whatnot, we certainly should be able to get those out ahead of time. And then maybe a draft version. I sometimes will do that. Send out a draft and then, closer to the meeting, send out a final or recognition of what has changed since the draft. So I'll look to our professionals to do their best to try and get that out sooner so that we do have time. I know I looked at it at 4 o'clock this morning, so I'm right there with you, Matt.
Sure. Dawn, for planning purposes, the school committee and the administration strive to have things to us Thursday for a subsequent Tuesday. I'm not suggesting same here, but I'm suggesting that we give our professionals under contract with us for this kind of work some guidelines around that, rather than just get them to us earlier. What do we actually want? That might help them.
Elizabeth Colgan, can you please mute? Anyone who's not talking, can you please mute? Thank you. Just getting background noise. I appreciate it. I would say a full business day is appropriate. So, either the Tuesday night or first thing Wednesday morning for a Thursday morning meeting. And I'm going to go to bat for our professionals and say that I don't know of any committees that get them that early as far as substance court, because typically you're working, especially when they're weekly meetings, you're working right up to the moment of the meeting sometimes. So I know we've had 2 weeks since our last meeting, but I would say that if we got them late Tuesday night, end of business day, or first thing Wednesday morning, that would, for me, be appropriate. Ian, Lorraine. Ian, I know you
Yeah,
put the package together. Is
yes,
that feasible?
Yeah, we'll try to get them out on Tuesdays instead of Wednesdays.
Yeah, and again, if the presentation needs to be a draft, or if something in the content of it says this is forthcoming, we don't have it yet, we're relying on whatever it is, cost estimators or engineers, someone that, I understand, and others will as well, but if the majority of the content is there, we'd appreciate it. Okay, anything else? It sounds like we're going to defer those and clean them up a little bit, Ian, and get them back out to the committee for our next meeting.
Yeah, we can clean those up. I don't know what the deal is, but we did spell check these things, and spell check doesn't seem to be working for some reason. So
the only thing I would take exception to is being referred to as the co-char. I do a lot of cleaning around my house, but I'm not the co-char of this committee.
noted.
And if we can agree that there were no substantive changes that needed to be made, I didn't see anything substantive. Definitely, cleaning up the spelling and getting West Tisbury right. But if maybe if Hill can go into this with just doing a cleanup without, and then just so we can keep moving forward on the minutes, can we approve them with spelling errors corrected?
I'm actually
My
fine with
thinking-
that personally.
I think they were sufficient in number, so it'd be wise to go back myself, but the
A lot of time on this.
one of substance I picked up was that I had moved to approve unedited minutes. And then the next sentence read that we approved edited minutes. And I think indeed I had suggested an edit. So I think it needs more than spell check. I think it needs somebody to actually look at it.
Okay. All right.
Okay, so sounds like we're deferring. There will be edits, another round coming around for review prior to the next meeting. Thank you. All right, next order of business, correspondence. Heather, I saw an email right as I was getting ready to log in.
Yes, speaking of
today.
last minute,
No,
my
that's okay.
apologies here. So we got an email. There was really just one to report. Well, I guess we got two. We got one a week and a half ago asking us to help build a school in Africa, which I should report on. But I think I'm going to assume we're going to keep going on ours first, as much as we would like to help. We got one within the last couple of days that just came to two of us. I only saw the request last night. There was a request last night to share it with everyone, which I only saw early this morning. So my apologies, but if you can log on and look, it is related to a cost saving suggestion and value engineering. And And so I'm just going to point out what it is only because it's relevant to our discussion here. Scott Bates recommended that we look into Ready Rock or Versalock as retaining walls because they have a natural look and are often less expensive. So just wanted to point that one out. And obviously the group can choose whether to discuss that in our discussion today or at some point. But mostly apologies that it was sent so last minute, only a few minutes ago, but wanted to point out that it's there. And I think that's it, unless anybody else received any that I didn't again.
I have a question on that email, but I guess I'll leave it to the professionals to do with it what they will. That's a site retaining wall, can only hold back earth, versus a foundation wall that can support a building. So just for clarity, I think, I don't know where it was suggested that it be, but that is the sort of, that still needs to be engineered and is typically used in a site scenario where you have a higher grade than a lower grade. And so I don't know how much of what we're talking about with the back retaining walls is just earth to earth versus part of the foundation of the building. So I'll leave that to the professionals, but just for clarity, that's what that typically, that type of product, which I've definitely used before, is useful in. So just
Yep, that's
letting everyone know.
correct. We've used it on jobs as well, and it's not for building foundations. It's a earth to earth retention system.
And that was the basis of the suggestion in the first place. It's for site work, not for foundation work.
Okay, great. Thanks for clarifying, Charlie and Ian. All right, moving on then. Where's my agenda? Bear with me here. Too many things open. Next order of business, select board meeting. Pat and I had the pleasure of joining our Concord select board, not this past Monday, last. Oh my God, I'm in a time warp. I think it was let me look at a calendar. It was last Monday, but Pat was going to report out on that meeting. That was the 29th of August, if I have my dates correct. So Pat, you want to give us an update on how that meeting went and what came out of it?
I hope people got a chance or will take the opportunity to watch the select board meeting, because I think it's important for all of us as a committee to kind of understand where the select board was coming from regarding our request to start the process of a special town meeting. The long and the short of it is that the select board is very interested in knowing more about our value engineering process to assure that we are working as hard as we possibly can to bring this project into line with the budget. So it was not, by no means were they saying, no, we would not have a special town meeting. There was some sentiment that if we're making changes to the scope of the project, that the town needs to have the opportunity to weigh in on it. But there is a strong sentiment that there would be resistance to us going to town meeting with that the select board would not be supportive of raising substantially the cost of the project, and that they are looking for a much more, as they refer to it, vigorous value management on the project. And Dawn and I took a little bit of exception to that. I feel that we have worked very hard to identify areas where we can value manage. And this has been a long, slow, and agonizing process, but we've been doing our due diligence by going through as many of the items as we can as one of our members has said, demonstrate to the town that we're looking at everything. One of the items that came up at the select board meeting was the suggestion that has been floated that we take a look at the lobby area of the project and moving the lobby area on grade rather than having the bridge. At our last meeting, if you recall, the committee discussed this. we heard from Lori and we heard from SMMA and from Hill, and we determined that we would not ask SMMA to go through the process of doing the design work that would be required in order to get a ballpark number of how much that would save us. However, through the process of sitting with the select board, it became clear that they were really interested in that element of the project, and was there the possibility of significant savings that they felt, or as far as they understood it, did not impact the ed plan, although Lori has been very clear that this has been part of the ed plan. So I will take total responsibility. I went back to Hill and SMMA in our leadership meeting and asked if there was a way to try to get some kind of a ballpark number for what that would save us. And sort of upon reflection, I realized I really didn't have the power to do that. I couldn't do that. We had voted as a committee not to do that. So I want to bring that issue back to our committee for another look at it before we decide whether or not we want to pursue it. I'm basically asking us to reconsider it and have asked that SMA and Hill do some more presentation on what the impacts would be of making that change. And then we can, as a committee, decide if we want to go down the road of finding out how much, if anything, that would impact the budget of the project. Also asked Lori to share with us the ed plan aspects of that part of the building, that physical manifestation of the building. So that's something that we will be discussing this morning. So that's it in a nutshell. Dawn, I don't know if you want to add anything, or Matt, if you want to add something. I guess you do because your hand's up. So please do, because if I haven't captured something, I want to be sure it's captured for the.
Yeah, so I just wanted to say that from my perspective, it wasn't that I was necessarily suggesting that the bridge area or lobby area be put on grade. It also seemed to me that there could be the opportunity of creating a space under what is now a bridge that could then display space elsewhere in the building, and that might even be cheaper than putting something on grade, just given all the other grade options, and that the rest of the building, you know, is at that has that lower level. So that I just don't want to forestall looking at other options. It's not like I'm a architect or something that's trying to design the building here. I'm just trying to say, well, this is an apparently, you know, more expensive detail of the building and long-term maintenance issue that could be potentially replaced either with grade or with additional space in that area or whatever. It's just take some creative and professional thought, but that was money.
Okay, thank you, Matt. And yes, it's really just, look, we have this design. It was designed for a purpose. We need to discuss that purpose and understand that. But we also are getting, there's a lot of interest in seeing if this would in fact save significant amounts of money in this project, however it got redesigned. Charlie?
Well, I certainly didn't hear much discussion of this. I listened to the meeting, I watched it, and I don't even recall any discussion of the bridge on grade. I think that you're looking at increasing cost of the project to put the bridge on grade. So that's probably what's going to happen. And I also did look at the ed plan. I didn't find any reference to any of this in the ed plan. I'm sure that you know they're implicit somewhere that there's some impact, but there's nothing explicit in the ed plan about this. So it would be good to hear from Lori on this. But if you look at the ed plan, it's not in there.
So Charlie and others, I think what I wanted to do was to try to give you a synopsis of the meeting. And if I've left anything out that's of importance from the meeting with the select board, this would be the time for someone to speak up. But I think, we have asked the professionals to give us a little bit more of a window into this question. So I think I'd like to proceed with that before we start debating what.
Yeah, and I remember that 3 members of the select board independently mentioned the bridge concept, so it was definitely discussed.
Yep, I was just going to add, thank you, Matt and Charlie. It definitely was discussed. And another topic of discussion was understanding maintenance costs versus upfront cost and life cycle cost of materials as we make these decisions. So that's also information that we've asked Russ as far, and I used an example because it was hard to, they said, well, we haven't really seen any examples and we weren't really prepared to go through exhaustively the VE list. So off the top of my head said, oh, here's an example, VCT versus linoleum. Linoleum's easier and less labor to maintain. Doesn't need to be stripped and waxed and everything every summer, but it's more expensive up front, and those savings could be received if we went down the road of having BCT, but there is a maintenance and a labor cost and a materials cost to every summer pull all the furniture out. So we actually asked Russ to pull together some current costs because I think they have VCT. So that was another example of sort of the questioning of to what level of detail are you looking at some of these things. So definitely as we make cost and material decisions, we want to understand what the implications are long-term, right? This is a 50-year building. So that was another example of something that I think that was Terry Ackerman that had brought that up. And then also she was concerned and wanted to, she asked our committee to work with anyone. She said the sustainability director, which we're currently, we don't have a position for that, but asking about grants and would there be any possibility for that? So yes, certainly, but I don't know if there's an ability to do that upfront rather than during the process. So that's a question, but happy to look into any possible grants. I don't know that that'll help us in this moment in our value management discussion. And then she asked us to work with the school committee as well. I think that I don't have my notes in front of me, but I think it was just based on the educational plan and the support of that. So of course, we're happy to do that with Alexa and Court on the, as representatives on that committee. I think that was everything that I didn't hear you say, Pat, that came up.
Yeah, I think, as I'm thinking about it, I mean, the whole question of timing, do we wait until we have, the 90% numbers, the 60% numbers? When do we, how do we time this? And our ask had been to get the ball rolling sooner rather than later so that we are out in front of the problem of, and the opportunity to give the town a say in where we go with this project. So there was some discussion about that. And the select board, as I understand it, will pick it up at their next meeting and make a decision about whether or not they're going to request a special town meeting. There did seem to be a strong sentiment, and Matt, you can correct me if I'm wrong, that the town needed to have the opportunity to weigh in on what option we might choose given the unprecedented escalation of costs of the project.
Well, I wanted to mention that was the sort of most explicit decision that we came up with at the select board, was that we said if the budget increased by, several of the members said anything at all, but others said $1 million or so, that we would seek a townwide vote. And so that needs to be built into the schedule, assuming that any special town meeting action would recommend a budget increase of more than $1 million or so, which I suspect it probably would. And so that was a key thing to note out of the select board meeting.
Yeah, definitely. And I think it, just for everyone's information, all of the scenarios that we had played out, including the one that Matt originally brought to our committee, assumed that there would be a ballot question after the special town meeting. I believe, like, I think all the scenarios that we've played out have assumed that to be the case, but I think
A short one would be fine.
Elizabeth Colgan, you're unmuted again.
11 at the late.
Thank you. So just for everyone's information, I see Peter and Court. Is this related to the select board, Peter? I saw your hand first. Yes, great.
I just wanted, I too, watched that, select board meeting and listened very carefully. And I just wanted to, ask Pat, this part of the meeting is regarding reporting on that, specific meeting. And I'm assuming that later on during this discussion, we can talk about, the bridge and the site work, et cetera.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Because I got, okay, fine, I'll wait till then. Thank you.
Thank you. Court.
Yeah, I'll be brief. I have nothing to add about the select board meeting, but I think another context for us is the recent vote on the capital project at the high school just a couple of days ago. I don't know how others feel, but I thought it was sobering that it was a tighter vote than I would have hoped for. And I think it does suggest to me that we should pay very good attention to what the select board are seeking right now from this committee.
Thank you, Court. Heather.
Thanks. I just wanted to touch on the timing question because I felt like that was one of the biggest questions to come out of the select board meeting as well. And I want to point out that we all had discussion about the fact that time is money, and that if you push this back, it could significantly delay the project, which can then mean increased costs and all that. So I think that personally, I think that one thing that needs to come out of this meeting today is that we revisit the timing issue. And if we still believe that everything we said before is true, that we reiterate to the select board the reasons that the timing is important, because we could end up losing both time and significant money if we don't move at the right time. So I just would like us to all reiterate that if we're in the same place.
Yeah, I agree.
Thanks.
Great. Thank you, Heather. Anything else related to the select board meeting update? If not, we'll move into the OPM report. Ian.
Thank you. So I feel like we need to kind of chip away at this systematically here. There were a few things that came up. We just talked about select board updates, and we just need clear direction from this committee on how to proceed on a few items. So one being the area of the bridge, underneath the bridge, whether or not to study this. So last meeting, as you know, you voted for us not to do that. We're happy to do that study, to show the backup, to show what we feel is not going to be a cost savings for you guys, but we just need clear direction to proceed with that. So one thing that we did was just to go back and do a little bit of homework on, what the ed plan says, what the current site plan looks like for outdoor spaces and what the impacts are. So I can share a screen here and kind of walk you through that. Let me get the right screen here.
Ian, can I just comment while you're pulling that up?
Yeah.
So when I went through the ed plan, I think, just to clarify what I was looking for, there is at least one explicit reference to an outdoor performance area by the English department. And, I think beyond that, it's a lot of references to how we would expect to use the outdoors, and whether it got written down as explicitly as perhaps some are thinking or looking for. I know Justin and I believed all along there was going to be a large group outdoor performance area. In fact, that's something he's always trying to create even now with 2 buildings and getting kids in one place. So I guess we can debate whether it's in there or not. Literally, it is in the English department, and whether the rest is inference, but certainly from the educational side, our vision was to have such a space.
Yeah. And these are just some snapshots from the ed plan that speaks to indoor and outdoor spaces as far as the innovative environment. Some of the visioning talks about outdoor areas, integrated outdoor areas, connection to nature. The English section explicitly talks about outdoor classes and performances. You see some of the same common threads here with indoor and outdoor spaces for science, performance spaces for social studies and performing arts. So there you see that thread through the ed plan, and some more explicit than others, but you go to the site plan and you start to see that take shape. So you've got the area under the bridge. You've got this outdoor area here behind the media center as well, and then you've got the 3 outdoor classroom pods behind the education wing here.
Ian, one other example, and then we'll decide if we need to talk on this more or not. We have an outdoor concert annually at the high school that, the band is outside set up, and the, audience is staged on the pseudo amphitheater that we have there. Certainly was hoping that we'd be replicating some of that at the middle school and having some of those opportunities. So
Through the chairs, if I might.
Chris's hand is up too, I noticed.
Oh, sorry. Thank you. I lost track with the screen sharing. So it was Chris and then Court? Yes, Chris.
Yeah, I think just to clarify what Lori's talking about. Right now, we're looking at a depiction of an amphitheater, a space that runs continuously from upper to lower. By contrast, if, for example, you had an upper space that were level. So for this current view, assume, let's say, that we're filled and level, and then you don't have the pass through, and then you go through the building to get to a lower space. So just so people can see the concept, we're looking at, as you say, an amphitheater that goes under the bridge versus possibly an upper space that's level and a lower space downgrade on the backside of the bridge. Am I generally thinking about those sort of possibilities? There you go. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
I mean,
we can start
you'd be looking at
visualizing.
something like this where you're filling this void. So this is
Exactly. So what would happen is you'd say, for example, once that's level, there really is no retaining wall, there are no structures because you don't need those any longer. But to get to the backside of the building, you're going through the building, then you'd be on whatever's going on in the rear side of it. And yeah, it's a very different concept from something where you get to pass beneath the bridge and having, movement, or as the architects like to say, communicating from the front and back of the building via beneath the bridge.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Ian, if I may, I think that Chris was also obviously talking about the back sides. This is the front side. And so we need to, well, I think there's 3 things we need to make sure we're talking about with this. One is that, are we going to, if we decide to fill in that space, and I can talk a little bit more on that, are we going to replicate what is right now needed for the ed plan out back? So it's going to be value engineering of that. So that's number 1. Number 2, I think Lorraine's going to really need some direction here, because it's interesting to hear that space, we might be thinking of using the space under the bridge for square footage of the building, which means that we would have less square footage somewhere else on the building, which now Lorraine's looking at kind of redesigning the kind of the real workings of the building. And there's a lot of ways to do that when you start moving square footage around. I think that's hard. So I think the committee needs to let us know how many options we want to be looking at here. Because that starts to get into whole new design. So what I would say is, and again, we really, if you want to get us a number on this, this is not a real difficult situation to do it with some elevations and some structural information from Lorraine. Our independent estimators can put together a price on this, but I would say that number one, the foundations, you're getting rid of 2 side foundations. In the back, you're going to have to put in foundation wall. In the back, you're going to have to put in some sort of retaining wall in the back. So yes, to maybe a little less retaining wall because you're getting rid of some and you putting in more, but I don't know. So there's no real thing there. You're having to bring in earth to an area that's already where it is. So you're going to be importing soil, structural fill probably. I don't know if it's on the job site, which is an expensive proposition. Particularly compacting it, getting it ready for foundations, etc. So you've got that issue. Then you've got foundations to put in for the addition, where now you're spanning 2 foundation walls, and it's either going to be steel or precast tees. Or I'm sorry, Lorraine, I haven't seen the structural detail for that. And then you're still building the building. So I'd love to get this behind us. Our estimators can put together a detailed estimate on it. I would just be hesitant to think that this is some sort of number that's going to affect our thinking as we go forward on the overall problem, pricing problem.
Thank you, Peter. Court, that was you that commented that you had
Yeah,
something to
just
say.
very,
Yes,
very-
and then Charlie. So Court.
Very, very quickly, give you my perspective. Outdoor learning is a subject pretty dear to me that I've worked on professionally. So I enjoy this conversation, but I think we're past debating how much we want to appreciate the outdoor environment. I think we're all in full agreement. So I'm glad the conversation's starting to go the way it is, which is what indeed are our alternatives. I, for one, would like to see robust outdoor learning. These 3 pods make sense. However, there's a tremendous amount of detail that's been added since, I believe, May to the front and back exterior. So yeah, I'm all for looking at alternatives for how we could strip out some of this detail in order to protect the instructional wing, which I think that and the tough inflation factors that we put in that didn't work out, those 2 really combined to put us in this problem. And I think we can do a lot with simplification of the outdoor and still protect everything we desire here.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And just to point out, to that point, there are some things on the VM log that are being considered for this outdoor space for deducting it from the scope. So there's the bridge, the wood bridge that goes across here, that's around 80K, and then there's this ramp up that is a deduction. I don't remember the value, but it's over 200, I want to say, somewhere. By any means, there are some of those items on the VM log to cherry pick modifications and reductions to this particular area.
Charlie.
Yeah, there's a couple of things to also consider when this analysis is done. One is there's an exit door from the instructional wing at the ground floor, and a decision would have to be made whether to retain that. So were you to do that, you'd have to have an interior wall probably under the connector that would enable that door to operate and to have a exit way to get through there. Second, I'm not sure we've ever really discussed
You're talking here, Charlie?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, you'd have to figure out how to deal with that. Second, I don't know that we've ever really discussed the seating structures that are in the amphitheater area, that's always been kind of presented as a grassy area that kind of goes down the hill and kids will go in there and life will be good. Maybe that was discussed and I don't recall it, but it would be good to understand what's going on with that and what the cost impacts are of eliminating those expenses were we to fill the area and look for a different solution. In other words, you've got these bleacher seats, not sure what's underneath them. It looks like there's grass on them, but it really couldn't be grass. That probably wouldn't work. So what is there? How is that structured?
Lorraine, can you speak to that? As far as the proposed design?
The other question you have is
grass and
Lorraine,
concrete is the short answer.
Sorry, Charlie. Lorraine.
Go ahead. Yeah.
I think your audio is not working. I see your mouth moving and I can't hear you. So we'll give Lorraine a minute to.
I'm here. I can answer any questions
okay.
about that area.
Oh, perfect.
Charlie, could you just specifically repeat that what you're looking for? I'm sorry.
He was asking. Sorry, Mike. Thank you. He was asking what the actual material of the seating and the vertical members that hold it back are, I believe, Charlie.
Okay, so this is just simply a lawn terrace. It is. We can add. What we do is we add fiber to the soil material in order to be able to get that sloped area, that sort of 5-to-1, 6-to-1 slope area where you see that sort of the way it sort of terraces down. So it is literally all just a lawn slope area. There's no structure necessary or involved to be able to create that lawn terracing that you see here, and also in the back area.
So there are no bleachers.
Pardon me?
There are no bleachers.
There are no bleachers. That's correct. That's correct.
No
Yes.
bleachers. Can you hear me now?
A grass slope,
We can hear you now, Lorraine. Yep. And thank you,
Sorry,
Michael.
Logged off and came back on.
which is a pretty simplified design.
That's correct. That's accurate.
So it's like sitting on a grassy hill.
Exactly.
Yep. I mean, you could have integrated tiers, you could have integrated steps, concrete, retaining walls, these are things that you're not seeing here that, again, is a slope down is a pretty simplified design.
That's correct.
Matt Johnson, thank you for that. Thank you for clarifying design.
Yeah,
team.
I mean, again, what I was imagining was that space, rather than filling in and requiring a whole lot of fill in the back, if that lower area was usable building space, and it could be quite a large space. You could see it extending out beyond where the bridge is now in the back. It could actually simplify the access from the cafeteria, the door out to the back, all that stuff. I don't want to be an architect here, but I just say it. I think it could be cheaper than putting it on grade is to actually create space under there and take space from somewhere else, because you already have the grade that's going to, open up that story of building that could be put there right in the middle of the building where, it's accessible to all kinds of different activities. And then the amphitheater could go behind it if necessary, grass amphitheater. I do wonder also under the bridge, is that just granite or what are you doing? Because of course it's total shade. It wouldn't be grass under the bridge, right? So you've got grass coming down in the front to the bridge, but then under the bridge, what is the treatment there? It's going to be high traffic and low light.
Yeah, it's concrete only.
This is concrete.
Yeah, it's all just important. Yeah, just sidewalk concrete, for lack of a better term.
Yeah. Okay. I just, people need to know what that's going to look like, I guess.
So Matt, if I can get some point of clarification here. So we've got two two alternatives that the committee seems to be talking about. One is just filling it in and not having the walkway under the bridge, changing some of the retaining walls. But the other is, Matt, it sounds like you're proposing that we take space from somewhere else in the building, square footage from somewhere else in the building, and move it underneath the bridge. So you're kind of adding, let's just call it the nurses and the offices or a music room or something underneath the bridge.
That kind of space. Yeah. And again, it could be deeper than the bridge because it could go, out to where this wood bridge is, if you will. I don't have the expertise to know.
That's
really what I'm fundamentally getting down to is our VE and VM so far have been, little things here and there. And I'm just trying to say, what are the creative design alternatives that could really change the game a little bit here? This is one. Again, if our architects, they probably have so much more, knowledge to be able to think about that. Again, there's a long distance between what we have here and a concrete block. And maybe if we have a little less exciting building, but not a concrete block, it could be cheaper and still achieve, what we're doing. So that's all I'm trying to get to.
That's your question. You're wondering if you move.
Yeah, and again, I'm throwing this out there just as a layman, but and that could be totally wrong. I'm just trying to get the conversation to a higher level than just, okay, how thick is the insulation going to be?
So Matt, I appreciate that. I just want to keep us on track. So if we ask the designers to, our professional team to follow up on this idea, and it turns out that moving space from the inside of the building under the bridge is not going to save us any money, to me, it's not something we would want to do. We simply wouldn't want to.
Right. No, if it doesn't save significant money, no, it doesn't make sense. I absolutely agree.
Okay. So
I just have the gut sense that, there's some elements of the design, all the accessible ramping that has to be done, of course, to make that ramp work for everybody. There's a lot of engineering in there.
Question you're asking our professionals is to weigh in on, is there an alternative way of constructing this entrance that would save significant money so that we didn't have to look at other things to save significant money?
Well, we should look at many things as it works, but yeah, sure.
Okay.
Pat, could I ask a question while this slide is up, please?
Yeah.
Could somebody speak to the accessible ramp? We know that the bridge or the sky bridge or whatever we want to call it is a really cherished feature of this building. We know that we want the students to enter through the main entrance together, and it was made such that the volume would handle it. The accessible ramp looks really extensive to me, frankly, not very attractive, probably costly, and a winter nightmare for safety, in my opinion, and maintenance. Who benefits from this? I just see a whole lot of demerits to it. Can somebody help me understand that?
So when you ask who benefits, I mean, we need to make that amphitheater area accessible to all, whether it's, able-bodied, people with a temporary disability, people with a permanent disability. We need to make that green area, which is the performance part of the amphitheater, accessible to all.
So there's no other access to it? I thought there was
You'd have to go inside the building.
From either side.
Inside the building, right. So you'd have to let people into the building to get down through the building. So to get to that.
Is there anything wrong with that?
typically when we're doing spaces like this, if you have an outdoor performance area and you're not inviting everybody in to walk into the building, you want to have that access from outside. It's something we look at with a security lens, I guess I would say, Court.
So
You're
the
trying to
presumption
minimize
here is if I was mobility impaired, I would have one choice, and that is to go to the very bottom concrete pad
Or the top,
or the top, Okay.
right? Top or the bottom.
top or bottom. Okay.
Yep.
No, I would urge a really critical look at that and alternatives. I think we could bring in Dawn, your ADA. I've done ABB work. I think there's a lot of talent there. We could give that another look.
It's required, so if that's the question, it needs to be there.
Well,
Or go in front of the board that I chair and ask for a variance, of
So
which I would.
This is a code compliance.
Yeah,
item,
this is
right?
code.
So
Yep.
something that extensive is not negotiable. Oh,
You can ask for a variance, but that would be a hard sell. This is brand new construction.
fascinating.
Chris, I see your hand.
Yeah, just to clarify, so if we're creating the outdoor space where we can pass from front of the building under the bridge to the back, the point under Architectural Access Board Code 521 CMR is we would be required to create that ramp so people would not have to go through the building to get to the lower end. Is that the point, Dawn?
Yes, there needs to be a
Coincident.
Yeah,
Court is coincident.
coincidental, coinciding path. I
Path
think
of
is the
travel.
actual term. Path of travel is the actual terminology. A coinciding path, that you can't expect that one would take the exact same path, but that one would have the opportunity to have a coinciding path that typically doesn't take you a mile down the road and a mile back, but this is a 1 in 12, I assume. So a 1 in 12 ramp that you can only go 30 vertical inches, which is 30 linear feet, essentially 1 in 12, before you need landing. So what you see is ramping with landings.
And to follow up on that point, as Lorraine was suggesting, if this outdoor space were used for some event where you never had to get into the building, that feeds that whole point. So for example, we have some event and the rest of the building's closed off. So of course you've eliminated the possibility for someone in a wheelchair to get to the lower end without opening the building. You're creating that kind of flexibility for an exclusively outdoor event where the building's not involved versus anytime we're doing some event in front or back or beneath the bridge, we want to be able to go through the building, upper, lower, whatever. Okay. Thanks.
Thank you. I guess I wanted to just point out, I see Lori's hand and I'm going to get to in a second. I just wanted to ask if there were, we took a vote previously not to study any of this. I guess I want to put it out there for anyone else that thinks either that we want to reconsider that or uphold that or wherever folks stand. Lori, you took your hand down.
Yeah, well, you said you were going to call on me, so I did.
Oh, okay.
I just wanted to
wait,
voice.
You still want to say something? Yes,
Yeah,
please.
I do. I just want to voice what we've heard from CPAC and the Disability Commission, and our intent of all these programs that we're building and we've created space for, and that's a universal access for all. And I'd be heartbroken to think that our kids who are physically limited mobility wise had very different access to some of that space than others. That seems contradictory to some of the intent and mission of what we're doing. So
I agree 100%. I try not to say that too often, but that is 100% how I feel, and universally designing it is the best way to do it. Not just code compliant, but equal access for all in every way. So
Dawn, question is the presumption then that everybody would use that ramping in order to get to the concrete pad?
The presumption is that anybody could.
Anybody could, okay.
Yep. And those who would rather lay down and roll sideways down the hill. No, I'm kidding. I'm picturing like a grassy hill, and I just watched my kids do that the other day. But those who want to walk down the grass to get there can, if they're able, or they can traverse the ramp as well. So there are multiple options for those who are able. And then there's definitely the code compliant option for those who need that, whether it's just a handrail and some stability, or whether it's someone in a wheelchair. So,
And finally, maybe picking up on Mr. Johnson's point, were that concrete pad not there because of some redesign, would the ramping then not be required?
I think the concrete, I don't want to speak for our professionals. I think that's the presumed performance area, right? Like that's where one would stand and either speak or, you know, an ensemble might gather and play.
But I think what Cord is saying is if it was filled in, there's no destination, then you don't need the ramp to get to that destination.
Yeah, I guess I was getting to that. If there's not a performance area, if there's not a place that one would stand that's lower for those to sit and view, then it's essentially not an amphitheater, because without a performance area, I guess, you know, one would always need to get to where the performance, I don't want to call it a stage or just a platform, wherever one would stand, there needs to be access to that if it were provided. So, okay, Steve, and I just want to remind everyone, please raise your hand. So thank you for those that are doing it. Steve.
Right, thank you. So your question we voted on this last time. We're revisiting it because of the discussion that we had at select board. Understandably, the reason that I voted not to pursue this is because it takes time away from the design team. And the design team needs to be focusing on the design that we've put in front of them to date. I think that this is an opportunity that we would consider if the town voted to reduce the budget to 100 or keep the budget at 102. I think that's the option C that Hill provided. I hope that we can, you know, table discussions like this, or at least capture discussions like this within a time frame, so that this committee doesn't spend an hour talking about something that may happen if option C were voted upon. And I hope that we can go to Matt's point, which is, I think, let's look at those 5 maybe options that we would consider if option C were selected and we need to reduce the budget significantly. This would be on the table in my mind. The gym would be on the table in my mind in that scenario. And I think we should outline those handful of things that would be part of the question to the ballot. As option C, we would consider major changes such as these things that would have to be further defined, further discussed, and further designed, and would, you know, ultimately hopefully change the budget to the better.
Great point, Steve, and I agree with you that the time that it takes to study is significant, at least as far as taking away from the work that needs to happen at this point in construction documents. So thank you. Chris Popoff.
Yeah, just real quick, I appreciate the drawings we're now seeing, at least for me, for the first time, help clarify the various functions beneath the bridge. And we really haven't seen this before. Maybe I've missed it, but I've been at all the meetings and looked at everything.
Yeah.
So
this was
really
in the
does,
DD set.
this really does, but this helps explain for everybody, others who maybe are not looking this as closely, that, for example, in this drawing we have on the screen, the concrete area there is really a performance space, much like a stage. So you'd have facing up the hill or down the hill, making use of it that way, as opposed to simply, oh, we're just walking beneath this. So, you know, we've explained a little bit more of very useful functions for what this might be. So I think that makes sense. But to follow up on Steve's point, I really want to hesitate putting things off and not thoroughly vetting here, because I think if we don't, at least to pick up on Peter Martini's point of thinking about potential significant cost savings on different configurations, we really won't have done our homework to be prepared to offer something for the town. Yes, I understand it's work the design team has to do, but if Peter's general point is our various configurations won't net us significant savings. Sure enough, but we really don't know enough to know whether there could be significant savings in reconfiguring this. Thanks.
Thank you, Chris. I just want to point out these drawings were available back in June. This is the DD set that was priced. And just for reference, for those that don't know, this is a normal evolution of drawings. The SD puts together a budget and some big ideas, and then the DD further defines those, and then construction documents details them. So just for those who aren't in the industry and don't necessarily understand the evolution of things, this is fairly normal for a design development level drawing. So, Charlie?
Yeah, I'm wondering whether there's another way to look at this. I think the area that we're looking at now under the bridge and in front of the bridge lends itself to the notion of an amphitheater. But, you know, do we need an amphitheater? Can we have an outdoor performance area that isn't deeply sculpted like that and meet a lot of the requirements and eliminate some of these special access issues that we've got with this ramp? In other words, is there another way to do this? Is there another way to meet the need outdoors that would avoid our using a potentially difficult space that has, you know, added cost and complexity? So it's just, I would like this analysis to look at least one other space that doesn't have a deeply sculpted arrangement that would enable us to, you know, meet the needs without doing it this way. I think that, you know, bit of a thinking outside the box. So I hope we can incorporate.
Thank you, Charlie. I'm just going to point out that anything that's sloped will need a ramp unless there's a accessible walkway.
Well, does it need to be, my question is, does it need to be sloped any more than the existing auditorium? I'm not sure how the existing auditorium works from an accessibility point of view, but does it need to be any more sloped than the auditorium? And is it in a sense an outdoor auditorium and what we're talking about?
Yes, and I don't know which auditorium you're referring to, but the one that's in the existing building may not be accessible from current code. So just want to point out that.
But yeah, yes.
Okay, I don't want to spend time on this. It needs to be accessible.
Well, no, I'm not saying it shouldn't be accessible. I'm saying, can it be accessible in the same way? And you know, would that be an alternative that might be workable in a different location?
Great, thank you, Charlie. Heather. I want to try to move on from this, unless there's like something of substance. Like I put out there, do we want to uphold our vote to not have them spend the time to study these, or do we want to revote? But I see Heather, Matt, and Alexa, and then we're gonna debate this, what we want to do.
Okay, so my comment is debating, but I think Ian was about to respond to something that Charlie said. Is that true?
Oh, I was just thinking about the existing topography out here, and I want to say that this is a sloped area already, so there's not a lot of rework that's happening in here. They're using existing contours. Mike could speak to it a little better.
I think you can see them. Aren't those the dashed ones, Mike?
Yep.
The grayed out dashed.
Yeah, I mean, this is already the low spot. So if you can hear me.
Yeah.
This is
we can hear
the
you.
low spot in the site. And what we're trying to do is work with the existing contours to blend this and create a zone, which is why there's not a lot of fill in this area. But I understood what Charlie was asking. He was just saying, is there a different way to do it?
Yep, that was the essence of it. Either way, it needs to be accessible, and we all know that.
A different way without the slope, without the big slope.
Yep, no, I understood, Charlie.
Thank you.
Thank you, Charlie. Heather, was that your?
Yeah, that made sense. I was just going to weigh in on the question you asked, which is, should we be relooking at this? And I guess I keep coming back to the time is money. And Lorraine or Ian, please correct me if I'm wrong, but I thought throughout this conversation we've heard so far from both Hill and SMMA that it didn't seem likely that re-looking at this was going to end up a big savings. And so I feel like spending a lot of our time and money now on them redoing it for something that they don't think is likely to save money, I'm just not sure that seems like a good use of time, added to the fact that, as we heard from Lori, this is part of the ed plan. And I want to be very careful that it's one thing to say, oh, we could have a performance space, but not have it sloped. And all of a sudden, if we just have a small flat grass space, it's not really a performance space because you can't see their performers. I want to be very careful about protecting what we've agreed to protect in the ed plan there. And so I think that Steve's comment made a lot of sense to put this on the list of things that we would say, if we have to bring the budget down to 102 again, these are the things that we would look at in detail and compare. But to me, I don't feel like we're going to get a lot out of putting the time and money into redesigning this now. And again, Lorraine or Ian or Peter Martini, correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, I mean, I think when we first started this conversation, it was what would this area look like if it was filled? And so just running through the logic of that is exactly what Peter was alluding to, is you're now taking an existing sloped area and you're filling it. So you're spending money to fill that area, and you're spending money to put in foundations underneath the bridge. And so we just thinking through the estimating side of it, it's probably a fruitless exercise. You're spending money to do that. It's probably a cost neutral change in our minds without having the estimators involved and actually doing the legwork behind it. So the alternative to that is keeping the space as is or modifying it to some degree. So we can go through all these features, and if you're going to keep a sloped walk here, which is a very simplified grass hill, there's not too much to change there. You have to keep the accessible ramp for code compliance, so you can't really change that if you're going to have a sloped area. This is intended to be the performance area. So we were looking at other and that keeps the integrity of an outdoor space, right, for use. So if you're looking at VM, this is kind of some of the initial thoughts that we had was removal of the wood bridge, removal of the sloped walkway, changing the concrete foundation wall finish along the foundation walls. That was another item. So, we can keep going further with site changes, but that was a start towards maintaining some of the space and also integrating value management.
Thank you, Ian. Heather.
Oh, sorry, I just hadn't put my hand down.
Oh, that's okay. Matt.
I'm just wondering acoustically what that performance areas could be like, right? It's got concrete floor. I don't know what the ceiling is, but it's probably hard surface. It's deep and flat. And then you're projecting into open air space. So I don't know what consideration's been made for that, but it just is something. And then also I just keep coming back to, I don't personally think fill is the right answer. I think creating space beneath is the right answer if you're really going to try to save some money here and also create a more useful building.
Thank you, Matt. Alexa.
Hi, yeah, so I mean, my feeling is one that echoes Steve's. I think that the prudent thing to do is to table this for the time being. When I hear Ian say it's likely to be a cost neutral or fruitless errand, that is enough for me to move past this. And that is, again, not even taking into consideration elements of the ed plan, the fact that part of this topography was why we chose this site. So if I need to revisit the motion to table this for the time being, I'll do it. But that's my sense for today. The committee spoke about this last week, I don't even know, 2 weeks ago. If we need to do it again, fine, but I don't see why we wouldn't uphold a vote. That's it.
Thank you. Alexa, you didn't make a motion to uphold it. You're just suggesting that you.
No, I'm
would
saying I
if-
will
okay.
if needed, but I hope
see.
it's not needed.
I just want to make sure I didn't miss it.
Yeah.
I was like, wait, do I have to
Good.
call for a vote? Okay, thank you, Alexa. Pat?
All right, so I'm really struggling with this. I just can't imagine spending a lot of time redesigning a really excellent design if there's no cost benefit to it. It's like what is the cost and the benefit of this action? And I think Ian has spoken very clearly that filling it in with fill is going to be a no-go. If we still have out on the table, and if the community, and I'm speaking of the select board and other members of the community who are intent upon seeing this project value engineered as much as possible, I don't think we can ignore this proposal that's been put out. I don't think we should have to spend a hell of a lot of time working on it, but I wish, and maybe this is a fruitless wish, but I wish that there was a way, Ian or Lorraine, that we could get some kind of an indicator, of what the cost would be involved in moving. I mean, I can't imagine that isn't huge to move space out of the building and put it under a bridge that accommodates the contours. So while I don't think it's a wise thing to do, I think we're kind of boxed into a corner as a committee to have to somehow address it.
Pat, from hearing the
I'm feeling very frustrated, and my head's gonna explode. So I'll stop talking.
Pat, from hearing from listening to the select board meeting, it's not going away. And if you'd like, we can, like I mentioned before, I've got to confirm this with Lorraine SMMA. We can put together, have our estimators put together. We could do it here, but I'm afraid that if we did it, somebody would say we're kind of fiddling around with the numbers. So, which we wouldn't ever do. But so we could get, I don't know how long it's going to take Lorraine to do a sketch of changing it. We've already gone through all the VE for the landscaping. I know we're continuing to go through it. So this is just kind of a structural issue. I would advise against having a second sketch that says we're moving square footage. Square footage is square footage, no matter where you put it. There's not going to be a big savings on where you put the square footage. I get it. There can be some changes in price for square footage. So my opinion is that we should do a sketch. We should send it out to the estimators and have them do an order of magnitude estimate and get this behind us.
Matt? And then
If it's
Alexa.
just going to be about filling under the bridge, I can tell you I'm not in favor of even re-looking at it.
Thank you, Matt. Alexa?
I'm sorry, I thought you was gonna speak for longer. I just put a cereal in my mouth.
I timed that perfectly.
Sorry.
That's okay. Matt could have gone on then and given you some time to chew and swallow.
Yeah. So that's all good and well, but if we're going to do that, we need to revote it, because the committee can't not uphold a vote, in my opinion. So I'm fine to revote it, but we must.
Thank you, Alexa. Heather?
So I want to understand a little better. So Peter, can you just help clarify what you're suggesting is that we get kind of a high level estimate on filling or on moving square footage as
No, I
mentioned?
would say, my opinion is that if we're moving square footage underneath there, then it's an errand that is not creating really any value engineering to the building. So I would not do an estimate on that, because you're still building the same amount of square footage. The issue arose that why do we have to have a quote tunnel or a bridge, which seems to cost a lot of money? And wouldn't it be a really good idea to have an item where you could save money without losing square footage? My personal feeling on it is that just looking at it and doing construction and doing fill and doing structural work is that it isn't going to save you any money, but it's out there. So my recommendation would do, and but I think before, if you guys want to re-vote or not vote, I think we just need to hear from Lorraine about what she thinks her effort would be to be able to put together something that could be priced.
And that would be priced on the fill option, you're saying?
Yes, because we've already looking at all the VE in back. So we're just gonna fill in that area and build it on grade.
Yeah, sorry, I was looking at plans to see what I could shift around, so that's why I was quiet. So we'd need to get with, just if we had to put space there, I was like, I had to look at what could possibly go there. Because right now your academic wing is stacked, so anything I take out just changes that stacking. So, you know, we could look at this. I mean, I will say we took a very high level look at it, and we're just trading a lot of places when you're not putting space underneath, which is why I think Ian's saying that we don't see forecast that there'll be much of a savings, because this was the ravine option that you chose. And the reason we chose this option but way back in feasibility was because that ravine exists out there today, and we were using that to our advantage to save money. If it's space, I'd need to get with Laurie and Justin to figure out who would want to put under there and then get back to you guys. So if that's the wish of the committee, that's absolutely what we'll do. I can't make, I was just trying to look at the square footage and see who would fit under there neatly without causing a ripple effect throughout the building. You know, we're not going to put the nurse down there. We're not going to put medical. Getting an ambulance down there if someone's injured is not what we were going to do. You know, so you're not going to move. You need to keep guidance with the administrative suite. So there's adjacencies that are super critical for this project. And in addition to that, like there's a special education classroom right next to it. So if you look at, you know, we're very intentionally not placing all the special education in one area. You know, there is a real desire, and we've reviewed this with CPAC. This is the way the MSBA works. This is the way DESE works. You have to distribute those spaces. So just quickly looking at the plans, I had a couple of ideas, but I really would need to meet with Laurie and Justin and make sure that anything I propose down there is something that's acceptable to them.
But Lorraine, where's the money? Where's the savings?
Well, I have to carve that square footage out of the building.
Right.
So that's why I'm saying it's a jigsaw puzzle, right? If I'm taking a piece from over there, I have to put it over here.
Right. So there's no savings of square. Sorry, there's no difference.
There's no savings of square footage.
Right.
It's the same square footage.
Right.
It's just
so to me, it's building something someplace else. You know.
Right. Right.
So the issue here is is it less expensive to build that on grade? That's where this started from.
Okay, I'm going to ask Matt Johnson to speak, and then I think our committee needs to vote. So
Yeah,
I'm just putting that out there. Matt, yes, please.
My assumption is that structure that creates a contiguous building that follows the contour of the land like the rest of the building does there, and perhaps even could be bigger or deeper than the bridge itself at that level, would be cheaper than the equivalent space, you know, that included a bridge. Because the bridge requires all these additional elements of, you know, landscape, ramps, steel to support the bridge, etc. You just make it part of contiguous building all the way across, as opposed to two buildings connected with a bridge. And yeah, it has the same square footage, but now it's all just part of a contiguous building that per square foot, hopefully, would be less expensive than this. Now, you know, my goal is not to have a specific design. It's just to say, here are things that sort of from a layman's perspective look like they cost more. And if they don't cost less to change, then that's not the right answer. It's just trying to say, you know, what are the creative ideas, and not hearing a lot of other big ideas, I just threw something out there. Again, I would love to hear other creative ideas for design that would get us substantial savings. I'm just grasping at whatever straws I've got.
I appreciate that, Matt. I'm going to ask if anyone has any motions that we might be able to vote on so we can move on from this, because we still have plenty to discuss today.
Well, I guess I'm going to go ahead and just move what I would like to see. And if it's not supported by the committee, then that's fine. That what I would like to do is to ask SMMA, as they have offered, to explore a design option that would use the space that's currently taken by a performance space under the bridge, and perhaps some more, to displace space that's elsewhere in the building, with the goal of having a total lower square foot cost, and centralize some space that might be elsewhere in the common wing. In order to simplify the design and perhaps save money. Yeah.
I'll second it.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I think it is a responsible move, in that we are in the conditions we're in, number one, and number two, that we, to Matt's point, simply don't have other good options at this point. And if this is the best one, I think we have a responsibility to really take a genuine look at it. Thank you.
Thanks, Steve.
My question would be to Matt in reference to the select board timeline. If we were to ask the professionals to discuss this and provide a sketch, review it with Lori, then send it to the estimators, then, provide some kind of a price, I think that might take longer than what our original timeline was for the select board to vote on whether or not a town meeting would be supported by the select board. So if we were to move forward with this, knowing that the building committee is moving forward with looking at this and potentially other options to significantly reduce the budget, would you say there's a good chance the select board would continue with the existing proposed timeline in the warrant that we requested, so that we can keep the ball moving on in both fronts?
Well, I can't speak for my colleagues, but all I can say is what we heard out of the select board meeting is they wanted to see a serious, look at major VE. And I think that, voting for this would indicate that the committee is open to those kinds of discussions. So that would be encouraging. But again, I can't speak for what my colleagues will say.
Thank you. Great question, Steve, and thanks for your response, Matt. Chris?
Yeah, just for the discussion for this motion, given possibility of this kind of build out beneath the bridge, which would effectively eliminate the bridge, would it make sense as an alternative as part of this to say, what if the only possible change would be to level the front? So there is no slope there. Yes, there's a fill cost, there's fill on site. So if the only thing to think of is we're not going to build anything beneath the bridge, we'll leave that open for the rear part of the house, as it were. And then if that front area were all level, does that make sense? Does it add much more work to this, or is it a reasonable alternative? So just something to think about. I don't know if we want to amend the motion for that or put it as a separate motion. I'm just not sure what's the way to keep it clear.
Well, I'll assume the motion will stand unless someone wants to revise it or make a second one. Chris, how's that sound? Let's get through the discussion and then we'll figure that out. Alexa.
My next question is, the part of why I feel like this is not a responsible path is we do have things on our VE list that would get us, if not entirely to the original budget, very, very close. And they are the gym and the auditorium. the superintendent said she would not go to bat for those spaces because they don't adversely impact her ed plan. So why are we pursuing something totally in a different direction when we do in fact have things on the on the value engineering list that will get us there, and they're in the community side of the building? So to me, that is at the crux of why I don't feel like this is irresponsible. I also feel like our professionals can't be more clear that this is likely to not save money. So those two things combined together, I couldn't disagree more that this is a responsible route. So.
Thank you. Alexa, Heather?
I'll be brief because I agree with most of what Alexa said. I just need to point out that I do not think it is that voting to do this and redo it would be a sign of being willing to look at options. To Alexa's point, we have others. And I think we as a committee have been looking hard at options. And I agree with what Pat said earlier about the fact that that effort has been going on and is continuing. This one, we're being advised by our professionals that this is not likely to be a money-saving option. In fact, to me, that means we are wasting money by wasting time and professional hours on doing this. So I feel it would be irresponsible to look at this option.
Thank you, Heather. Charlie?
Hi, yeah, this is Charlie. I'm conflicted about this, of course, but I think that my previous comments still stand with respect to the fact that we're unlikely to save any money. In fact, I think this could be more expensive. We'd have to find an alternative place to put this amphitheater. I had a colleague take a look at this, an outside person who went to his own estimators on the whole concept. And they came back and basically, I didn't prep them up with any information that I had. I just asked, and they had all the detail, the slides, and they went through an estimation process. And they said, no, this is really not going to save any money. You're just trading one set of items for another. So no money to be had here. So if we're doing VE, this is not a candidate. And in fact, it takes attention away and time away that we could be spending on other VE items that might be more fruitful. So, you know, I agree with Alexa on this point, and I think with several others who have spoken.
Great. Thank you, Charlie. Peter?
Hi, yeah, I'm also going to weigh in there. The only question I have, to me, is this is a perception thing. And my question is, I guess, to Matt, is it something that the selectmen would view as valuable to have gone through this, even given the fact that we are seemingly comfortable that there really isn't going to be a cost savings from what we can tell? Is it important from a perception wise, given the bridge and that whole area, it, you know, seems to be an area where people think there might be able to save some money? Is it worth the exercise from a perception standpoint? When I agree with Alexa, to me, it comes down to a simple choice. We've got the money in the gym and the cafeteria, and that should be a choice that the community makes. As simple as that. So that's where I'm at, and I'm curious to see what Matt thinks from the selectman's point of view.
Thank you, Peter. Matt?
Again, I can only speak for myself, but I don't like to do exercises for the sake of appearances. The only reason to do this is if we imagine that it could result in savings. I don't know all the details of Charlie's estimation exercise. I don't know if it was just for filling. Again, my sense is that one contiguous building is technically a cheaper way to construct a building than two buildings with a bridge. But, you know, I'm not an architect, and I just believe that there should be something there. But if people are not committed to try to pursue that, then that's where we are.
Thank you, Matt. I'm going to call for a vote. I think we've discussed this substantially today. So Alexa, how do you vote?
No.
No.
Right.
So no to studying it.
No to
Correct.
studying it.
Got it. Just making sure. The motion was to have the, Matt, I don't know if you want to rephrase it or if you want me to paraphrase, and if I get it wrong, but basically to ask the professionals to look at moving built square footage under the bridge as a potential cost saving simplification of the design.
That's the nicest way to put it. Yeah.
Okay. Excellent.
And you know, it doesn't have to match the size of the bridge. It could be
Correct.
bigger or whatever, but
It could step out or in or
yeah,
of course. Okay, so Alexa's a no still. I assume Alexa, unless I heard you wrong. Court Booth,
Yes.
Heather Bout.
No.
Sorry, I was gonna keep track here because, okay, Frank Cannon. Can anyone see Frank? Let me go look. Thumbs up or thumbs down, Frank? Thumbs up, thumbs down. Frank, talk to me. Down? Did I see him correctly? Okay, you're a no. Thank you, Frank. Who's next? Justin not voting. Peter Fishalis.
No.
Okay. I'm a no, only because I think I agree with our professionals that it won't save anything. I think we have other prudent options to consider here. Lori Hunter.
Sorry, I'm at the row, so you're gonna hear the kids. I'm a no.
That's okay. And I know you need to jump off for a few, Lori, so.
Yeah, I do for a few minutes.
Yep, I understand. Matt Johnson.
aye.
Okay, next voting member, Pat Nelson.
No.
Chris Popoff?
No.
No. Charlie Parker.
No.
Okay, Matt Root.
I'm a no.
No. And Steve.
No.
Okay, looks like 11-2. The noes are in favor, or the noes went out. Okay, so with that, I think we have a very long list of other things we need to get through today, but I appreciate everyone's comments, information, sharing of ideas. This is all very helpful and hopefully will lead to our building being successful. So thank you all for spending the time talking through that. Ian, do you want to walk us through kind of our exercise of getting through the VE list? I think just to set the stage, I think we've made some, and Ian, I don't want to step on your toes as far as what you were going to share out, but just so the committee knows, I think we had previously talked about sort of 3 versions of the building. We've got our sort of original SC design with VE changes to date, which is obviously more expensive than our budget. We've got what our budget would be, and we need to figure out what that building looks like. And then I think there's something in the middle that we would potentially put out there to the town. I think the Lorraine had suggested, our professionals had hoped that we might be able to say, with the VE to date, here's where the building stands. Let's try to figure out what the building at budget looks like, and then build back to find something in the middle. As far as what we think we could live with, as far as, you know, features of the building that would be less than where we are, but potentially more than the budget. So I think Ian's going to walk us through sort of options A, B, and C, and what it would take for us to get to those, and then move through the big VE items. We're going to start, we've reorganized the chart, if anyone noticed, to go by value. Savings value, to emphasize the big ticket items, to talk through those, because we've been kind of chipping away and the process is definitely thorough and meaningful. But I think if we hit the big items and move to the smaller items, it might be more productive. So with that, I'll turn it over to Ian.
Thank you. Looks like Court had his hand up here.
Oh, hey, Court.
Yeah, if you don't mind.
Sure.
Up until now, we assumed that we would run these meetings until 9 or shortly thereafter. For time management purposes, can you give us a sense of what we're going to, how long we're going to be in session, and how that's going to guide the prioritization of our work today? I'm just worried some of us are going to have to leave for work ourselves.
Yeah, and that's a good question. I think Pat had sent out communication asking that, Pat, correct me if I'm wrong, I'm going off of memory here. Did you ask that we could stay on until around 10, just knowing that?
I just acknowledged that we're not going to end at 9. So
No, I understand. That's why I'm asking.
yeah, I do appreciate. So what I would suggest, and following your, quickly go through this, Ian, but then get us to what happens when we cut the big items, or how we just keep, I'd say let's just keep going and let's move as quickly as we can. But I don't think we're going to get out of here before 10, if that's what you're asking, Court.
So that's very helpful. 10 o'clock. Thank you.
Thanks, Court. Thanks, Pat.
Okay.
We good? All right, go ahead, Ian.
Yeah, let me run through this here. So I was trying to provide the framework for all the hard work that this committee has done to date to get us to warrant article cost, and VM through design development. So what I did here was just outline the various snapshots of cost for the project. So last year we went through feasibility and schematic design phases, and decisions were made, and we arrived at a number. So you guys are very familiar with that number. That was the warrant article. This is the 102-815-697. Okay. Just to recap some of the things that went into that cost here, is some big decisions related to project scope. So back in May, at the end of feasibility, we were looking at some changes here that are outlined related to scope. So removing the dedicated square footage for the alternate PE space, that was done. Revised the gym size to create a larger gym for the 2 practice courts, that was done. Revised the auditorium size to 420 seats, that was done as well. And then sorry, I skipped over, it's makerspace and alternate PE. And then just simplifying the building to try and lower total project costs. And so these were some of the areas, just to outline the summary of spaces that were changed at the end of feasibility. So that was a long process of going through that, and you guys made some tough decisions last year. And then we got the estimates back, and we saw, we went through the schematic design completion. We gave it to the estimators. We had them do their due diligence, and then we went back to this idea of we're over budget and we need to get back to budget. And so you guys, we did an additional value management exercise here where there were some savings realized on the November 12th meeting and VM that was accepted, close to 900,000, over 900,000. And then some additional VM that was accepted on the November 18th meeting. So we got that $1.7 million in savings total for schematic design value management. And some of the highlights for that was, stockpiling existing soils on site, reducing wood look metal ceilings, eliminating wood paneling in the media center, eliminating CMU walls and back of house spaces and gymnasium, reducing, I don't think it was completely eliminating, but reducing the roof screen coverage on the roof, and then removing the 934 gross square footage from the building footprint, which was in the gym area, and then reducing height of glazing of the connectors. And some of those were some of the bigger value management items in that $1.7 million. So just to recap, those were the decisions, the hard decisions that were made last year that went into this number. So that's how we arrived again at the number that went to special town meeting. So moving forward, the next snapshot was the design development projection. As you know, the estimates came in high, and when you run those numbers out, just plugging in the construction value where the estimate landed, we were at 108.4 million. And so there was effort made to do value management thereafter. That was back in June. We kind of went through these exercises in July and August, and ultimately, you guys accepted 1.1 million in value management, which is where we're currently at for the current cost of the project. And so all of that has been incorporated into the design moving forward. So where we're currently at is 107.2 million for current cost. I'm calling that option A as the high tier cost here to be presented. And then this is where we need to go. So we need to get an option B on the table, and we need to get an option C on the table. And what we thought might be helpful here is arriving at the option C cost, getting back to budget, and then building back to an intermediate cost, adding scope back in to get to an intermediate cost. And so you really need to have a goal in mind for this intermediate cost. It's somewhere in between 107 and 102.8 million. But that's one number that we need to arrive at, and then the other one's the back to budget. So in order to get back to budget, we're looking at a VM of $4.2 million, which is significant. So those are the options that we need to arrive at. We would like to arrive at those as quickly as possible, and really go through the process of getting there. So
Ian, I just could you go back to that screen?
Yep.
One second, because it's good to hear this spread out this way. When you say on the right, VM to get back to budget, that is in addition to the $1.2 million that we've already taken.
that's correct. That's correct. So both of these options already take into consideration
Another 4
value management that you've already done. So that's a starting point. This 84,995,943 includes the VM accepted through August 4th.
Yeah, so there's $200,000 that, sounds to me like they were possible, but we need 4,223,000.
That's right.
To get back to what was budgeted.
Yep.
And just to not lose sight of the fact, there was a vote on the dollars, and there was a vote on the scope. Since that has happened, we've gone through. I'm just reiterating, everybody knows we've gone through unprecedented inflation and market pressures. So at this time, there's two things you got to do. You either got to vote for more money, or you've got to cut the school. And to get back to where they were, which sounded to me like the select board was kind of talking about, there's $4 million that have to be cut. So that's where we're at here. Or the third option is you keep designing and you pray that the thing goes out to bid and comes in on budget. And we don't want to do that, and everybody's done the right thing.
Yep. So that gets us into the VM log and the discussion on back to budget. So what we did here, we're trying to help you guys along here. So what we're doing here is we created a log that has all the items that are under review and pending. We got rid of all the items that have been accepted or rejected at this point. So that we're not looking at those items, we're not being distracted by those items. We're just looking at what can be done to get back to budget here. So we took a stab at reorganizing this and prioritizing this. And so the strategy here was let's sort this by biggest values first, because we know we need to get to a big number. We need to get to 4.3 million.
Can you maximize the chart, please?
Yeah.
Thanks, Charlie. I thought it was just my eyes.
Thanks, Ian.
You're welcome. So we reorganized this by cost. Biggest values are at the top. We know we need to get a big number here. So the strategy was to kind of highlight what we think would get you there the easiest, and So that's everything that you're seeing in yellow. Starting with the biggest values first and working your way down to some smaller items that have already been recommended by Hill and SMMA as accepted items. And that gets you the 4.3 million back to budget here. So I think the exercise now is to just go through each one of these items and try and get.
Can you high level walk us through what is, just so, and then we can discuss each one as
Yep.
needed, but just so that everyone has a flavor for what you're saying.
Yeah, so
big
some of the big items is undoing the work that you did last year. So those two big items are going to be reducing the size of the gymnasium by 3,500 square feet and reducing the size of the auditorium by a third. And so those are the two big ticket items. That's a good chunk of the savings there. And then it kind of fell into some of the other big ticket items, such as changing the glazing from triple to double, taking a harder look at sustainability features of the building, and that's a big one. South side of the building, removing some retaining walls, so some site changes. Here is this, Lorraine, can you go over this one again? This is the walkway feature?
That is the, I'm sorry, it's very small on my screen. I'm on my laptop. That is the south side of the dining commons. That is the ramp that goes down to the performance area we were just talking about.
Yeah.
It was still in that rendering you showed earlier.
Yeah,
I think
it's
you
coming
actually
from the
highlighted
dining
it. It's
commons
that.
down.
Yep.
It's
Yeah.
that right there.
Sorry.
It's on the back.
That one.
That right
Yep.
there.
That
This-
angle.
So
Yep, that.
this one.
It's that one right there.
Yep. So
So it's eliminating
that's,
that. So taking away the connection from the dining commons to the lower area.
that's a big ticket item. Reducing ceramic wall tile in the toilet rooms to 8 foot on wet walls only. So this is taking out tile and putting in sheetrock, impact resistant sheetrock and epoxy paint. So this is 274,000, but it's a big change to the bathroom areas. This one here is reducing the construction schedule by 2 months. And that is a savings realized of 270K for general conditions. Just less time and management effort there for an 18-month schedule in lieu of a 20-month schedule. Reducing auditorium and specialty space by 25%. The AV systems by 25%. So a decrease in your AV systems, that's 265. This is a change to ceilings. So this is changing wood look metal ceilings with tile, savings 189,000. This is a change to the floors. So replacing linoleum with VCT. And some of these, come with considerations for maintenance as well. Elimination of millwork displays. So just getting rid of some of the millwork, 154,000 for that. Eliminating stair access to the roof. So instead of having stairs that go up to the roof, you've got a roof hatch instead. That reduces the stair tower. Makes it a little more difficult to get up to the roof level without having stairs there, but it's a consideration. Rough in only for sound field systems and the FF&E, so that's 125,000. And then these are some of the other items that we looked at. This is the wood bridge, the $80,000 wood bridge that I tried to point out on the bridge area there. Some changes to bollards, provide a stainless steel bollard with concrete filled. This is in
Stainless
lieu
steel
of-
sleeve.
Yeah, sorry, stainless steel sleeve on the concrete filled bollards. And that's in lieu of granite bollards, so just a material change there. This is a change to curbing, so instead of getting granite curbs throughout, you'd have concrete, precast concrete curbs at the straight sections. This is taking some of the advanced lighting controls, moving that down to 60% in lieu of 100% adjustable lighting. That's $41,000 savings there.
And we confirmed we would meet the air infiltration, so we still meet our code requirements.
Yep.
So we're using a different C406.
Yep. And then just furthering the coordination with the.
Sorry, so can we accept that one then?
Yeah, that's why it's on here in yellow. Yep.
Okay.
And then these two are related to the PV canopies and just coordination with that scope. So it's moving infrastructure from light poles or other mounting. It's actually a net. You're not gaining anything because one's an add, one's a deduct here. So but that's something that's in kind of in motion already. If you're gonna have the canopies there, then you're gonna want to attach things to the canopies.
That was a final coordination with SDA. We were not sure if the canopy lights would be providing the lighting and the conduits for that, but it's not. So the project still needs to put our lighting and our cameras on their canopies. So that has been confirmed.
So Ian, you're helping us out here by highlighting all this stuff. Are we going to discuss each of these items?
I think the idea was we can discuss them where needed. If folks are in general agreement, then we'll just move to agree and move on to the ones that need discussion. So that would be the plan, Charlie, to look to our professionals for a recommendation and then discuss. So by all means, there will be discussion about anything that needs to be discussed. And if that's all of them, then yes.
Don, can I ask, has Lori and Justin had a chance to review this list in time to do that?
I got my hand up too. I don't know if you can see me.
I do, Ross. I saw it, and then I saw Peter's, but yeah. So give me, Lori, you and Justin have reviewed this?
I think Lori had to step out, but
oh, that's right. Thank you, Justin.
Yeah, that's okay. But we have. And Russ, did you want to speak on that?
Yep. If Russ is, yeah, by all means, Russ. I was getting to you, so apologies for.
For some reason, my video is not working today, but so this I have some reservations about the roof access. Seeing that you're going to have all the infrastructure on the roof. And to just have a hatch to get up there that's a safety issue. It's just, we have that in our older buildings and they don't work. You know, you're going to be carrying motors and some, I don't know, possibly pumps and VFDs, you know, large equipment. And it's just the access it's important. So for the money you're saving, I just don't think it's worth it. So
will you hold on just a second before we get into these items? What are we
Hold
doing?
on, one second.
Are we going over these yellow items and you know, just saying, hey, yeah, we got to go for those, or what are we trying to do?
So Russ just wanted to make the point about the roof access, which I appreciate. Let's are there any on here that anyone wants to put forward as not needing discussion, general agreement that yes, they, you know, that it makes sense to do? And this is to get us to option C, right, Ian? The big number, the big savings, 4 million, I think you said.
Yeah, I mean, this is to get us to option C. There's a lot of compromises here.
And I think at the end of the day, this is not a building that, you know, that it's a building that will be on budget, whether or not we're all going to be in love with it. These are tough decisions, but we need to put forward something that is on budget. So these are not easy decisions, and they definitely are worthy of talking about. I just don't want to spend the time if everyone's generally saying, oh yeah, well, you know, whatever it is, like it makes sense to do, you know, to get us there. So Hands are
saying-
going up and
okay,
down.
I still
Charlie,
don't
will you
don't
please
understand what
just-
you're trying to do here.
We're trying to make decisions in a two budget building, what it would take to get there. So to get us to the 80 million construction cost, are we, you know, it would save us 1.2 to take the gym from 9,000 to 6,000. That's a quarter of the work right there. That's what they're saying. In order to get there, they suggest we do.
So, for example, you're suggesting that we accept the item, change curtain wall window glazing from triple to double, that we should accept that. That's what the yellow means.
To get us on budget, I think that's what the professionals, Hill and SMMA have agreed that's some of the major decisions that need to be made to get us there.
Can I just make a comment, Dawn, if I might?
Sure,
So,
Lorraine.
what we're saying is these are the type of items, the large ticket items that will get you to budget. We are not saying this is what your building should do. We're not recommending not having a stairs to the roof, but we're advising you on, in order to get to your budget, which is something that has been requested by the select board to show us what it would take to get to a building that's on budget. This is the order of magnitude of changes. I mean, changing the triple glazing to double glazing is going to significantly impact your EUI. No doubt about it. You know, it impacts a lot of things. So does, you know, not putting tile on the bathroom wall. It's going to be a maintenance issue. So does putting VCT instead of linoleum. There's operating costs with that. So with every one of these items, there are discussion points and there are negatives. But in order to get you on a budget, there's a point in time where we say, this is the order of magnitude of scope we need to take out of the project to bring you back based on today's dollars.
So we're not recommending many of these items. We're doing what amounts to a paper exercise to hypothetically say, if we had all these items, we could get back to the recommended budget. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
But I also think that we are going through a process whereby if we walk through this and we say, we can live with this big item reduction, then we are starting to move ourselves towards that middle option, that middle budget. If we say we can't live with that, we're getting ourselves to that middle option, right?
Pat, I think you're absolutely correct. And that's really what the work is here. The work is to figure out what we want as a committee, not how the numbers add up to create some nice bottom line on budget number. We need to figure out where our values stand, and what we're going to represent to town meeting is what we believe is the required path to meet the ed plan and to produce a building that is livable, secure, safe, and so forth. We're not simply here to play a game. We're here to determine what we recommend is the desired path, and that's where the time needs to be spent.
Well,
I don't think we're suggesting we play a game. I think we're suggesting that there are hard decisions that need to be made to get it down to 80 million, the on budget number. And these are the suggestions from our professionals. We don't have to say yes to them. That's what we're here to discuss. But these are the big ticket items that they felt, in order to get us on budget, that these are the order of magnitude of changes. That doesn't mean that you couldn't swap out a different one with a similar value, because that's what this committee feels should happen.
So therefore, we need to go through each item to determine whether this is the path that we would recommend for a proper building. To Russ's point, I mean, we can change the access to the roof to get on budget, but we don't want to do that. So I think we need to determine which items we really firmly believe in and which ones we do not want, and so forth. That's what we need to do.
Yep. So agreed. We're all in agreement here. We need to spend the time talking about them. I had put out there, are there any of these that anyone thinks, yes, they make sense to do?
Yes.
Okay, that's what I'm looking like. Let's talk about those first, and then we can go through all of them. I don't want to jump over them. I'm just saying, are there any that someone says, yeah, that makes sense to get us on budget? We are going to need to do that. Pat, what do you think?
I am willing to step into the ring of fire and say that I believe that we can reduce the size of the gymnasium and reduce the size of the auditorium. I believe we can have the building that we want and make those reductions.
Okay. Does anyone, so that's item 81 and 82 on this list, the first two that are highlighted. I see Matt, Chris, and Heather. Matt took his hand down, so I assume he wanted to talk about something else. Chris.
Well, actually,
Oh, sorry, Matt.
I had down because you recognized me.
Oh, no, please. Go ahead, Matt.
So
You did have your
again,
hand up first.
I am trying to understand what Pat just said was that you would do that for Plan B, which is sort of the midpoint plan, or Plan C, which is the back to budget plan.
No, I'm talking about getting us into a midpoint plan.
Yeah, so Plan B is what I want to call that sort of. Plan A is where we are as of August 4th. Plan B is stuff that we as a committee could collectively decide we want to offer as an alternative cost savings measure. And then Plan C is getting back to budget, which I think if I add up the items in yellow, they don't add up to everything. So Plan C still doesn't quite get us back if we to accept all the yellows.
No, it does.
It does?
Yeah, it's 4.3 for all the yellow.
Wow, okay, because the numbers seem to be getting smaller pretty fast, so I didn't see them adding up. Okay.
They did, yep.
They do. Okay, well, that's good, so that in some sense, unless there's some really strong objection, and I think, that would be the only criterion to apply to C is there any strong objection to any of the yellow items for Plan C? And then for Plan B, I love the idea of focusing the discussion with the hope of getting to some midpoint number.
Yeah.
And for me, adding to what Pat said, for item 30 and then further down the 80, the wooden bridge, those would be my top items to put into Plan B, cuts to make for a Plan B proposal.
So you're in agreement on 81 and 82, the reduction of the gym and auditorium?
I'm not as convinced about 81 and 82 as I am about cutting 30 and whatever the wooden bridge is. I seem to have a thing about bridges. I don't know.
I know you do. But I do think that we part of this exercise is we've been shown now the magnitude of the number of cuts that we have to make. And I think as a committee, we have to accept that there's some big items that we need to put on the table to get to a Plan B. And so that I just wanted to say that.
Yeah, well, also I could imagine for 81 and 82 a more modest proposal of 350 seat auditorium and a 7,000 square foot gym.
Well, Matt, this is just it. We need to figure out what we want to represent to the town as our recommended strategy for this building. That's what we need to do. And it may be this number, it may be a different number. So we need to figure that out.
Charlie, I just want to remind you, please raise your hand.
I will.
Thank you. Chris?
Yeah, it's a time to get into some more specifics to clarify. For example, following up on Pat's point, talking about gym specifics and the auditorium, maybe break that into two parts so we can get some consensus on those two big items.
Okay, let's talk about it. 81. Do you have something on that? Yeah.
Yeah, and just a couple clarifications. It's probably worth reminding everyone, what's the size of a full court basketball court we're trying to accommodate in the gym that meets the MIA standards, and work from that, because we start with that minimum and then we work out from that to the size we currently have, and to pick up on the other points, sizes in between. So what's that note? What's the square footage, or what's the dimension for the full basketball court that's required?
As a reminder, and I'll let our professionals speak in a moment, just a reminder, the MSBA standard 6,000 for this middle school, a traditional typical middle school. That would allow for one MIA center court. The ask from the community had two side-by-side minimum MIA courts which gave us the increase, plus I think some bleacher seating, if I'm not mistaken. And I know we talked about this quite a bit previously, to MIA that could be divided and that there would be bleacher space. But I'd defer to Lorraine. I just wanted to put that out there. The difference between 6,000, we're up at around 9,000, I think. So this reduction takes it down to 6, which is only one
But
MIA.
I think it would help folks understand the dynamics. 6,000 is the ballpark. Start with the dimension of the court itself, because it helps visualize how much running around space around that full court we're eliminating, which of course affects how long the cross courts would be and so forth. So I get the 6,000, but again, what dimension of that court itself and its square footage, and then the running around space would be helpful, I think.
So I
I'm
need
just
to
going,
pull back
it's 100
up.
by 80 or something.
It's 94. It's
94 by 100. There's 94, 80, and 72 is the minimum
It's
or something?
94 by 54. So
94 by 54.
pull back up the presentations that we made to you back in feasibility, I think when we were looking at all the different configurations. But the 6,000 square foot is tight. It does allow for an MAA court. It has reduced runoff and it has no bleachers on the sides. So I can pull back up the presentation that we made to you guys with all the different variations on the size of the court and the layout of the courts and what you could fit in. But this particular item 81 is taking it back to 6,000 square feet, which does get you an MAA court, but gets you limited runoff and no bleachers. But I don't have all the options. We don't have all the options priced.
Oh, okay. Well, just for ballpark numbers then, if we're not going to have the specifics right now and get into more details, if we're looking at 1.2 million saved by reducing it by 3,500 square feet, then we can just do the rough ballpark to say, well, what if you took 1,000 feet off? What do you, 2,000, 3,000?
You can do the math.
cetera.
Yep.
Yeah, and do the math and see what it is. But I think before we can make an intelligent recommendation, looking at that, run out at the ends do matter. Whether you have, is it 5 foot at the end of the court? Is it going to be 10 feet? Is the run out? Things like that, just so people are very clear. And again, that's the same thing we'll go through with what the auditorium looks like when we're taking away seats. Thanks.
Thank you, Peter.
Hi, I just want to make sure that we're clear on this option B, because if this is going to be what we recommend, then I think it, especially with the gym and the auditorium, where there's some options, I think we need to spend time on both of those, which we probably don't have today. Whereas many of the other items seem to be, you either do it or you don't. And that is an easier decision, because I want to be very careful. It oftentimes, if there's, we're going to give an A is what the total cost is now, and the C is here's how we get to budget, and the B is our recommended. In my experience, that's the town will often go that way. So I want to be super thoughtful about what those options are. And I think especially with the gym and the auditorium, we need to spend some time on those probably at another meeting and really dig into it.
Okay, I agree that given that it's 9:40, we will ask the designers to dust off our previous gym layouts and look at the incremental cost, to Chris's point about reduction of from 3,500 to whatever, 2,500 to 1,500, if that makes sense. However you want to parse that out, Lorraine, as far as how it makes sense from a dimensional layout, right? And then same with the auditorium. So we could discuss further, and I'm going to propose we do those two at the next meeting, I guess, because sure. I feel there will be quite a bit of discussion and back and forth as far as, what the incremental changes might be. Charlie.
Well, I just think, I don't want to repeat myself, but we should step through each of these just the way Peter said, and we should be sure that we're exactly comfortable with what we're proposing for B. B is what we're going to present as our recommendation. It's the one we're going to fight over and fight for. And I do think that there's quite a bit of granularity on a bunch of these items. If you skip down to the sound system, there's 265,000 on the sound system. you know, for 25% of the sound system, that means we have $1 million sound system. Is there more to be had with that sound system than 265,000? I'd like to know. And I think that that same kind of discussion is going to apply to some of the other items as well. Some of them are yes or no, like the wood bridge. Either you do it or you don't. But other items, there is granularity. So we're going to need to have the time to go through each of these. Sorry to have to say that, but that is the case, I believe.
Why are you sorry? That was our intent. We
Dawn,
just
it
didn't
would
get
be
to
very
till now
helpful. It would
to
be
know
very
which
helpful
ones.
for me
Yes.
to know where you need more detail for the next
Yep,
meeting.
I
So
was
maybe if we can
headed
focus on
there.
that.
Yes, I was headed there, Lorraine. So it sounds like Charlie's asking for more on the sound system. So that would be the reduction on number 66, item number 66.
Yes,
what else?
also on the rough end, the one on rough end. Well, I can send you a note on this. I think the one on the curbing, I think that one is still in there. There are a few that I have questions about where there is some additional detail that would help us.
Okay, I wasn't following your rough end one, but I'm happy to ask Lorraine to provide more on that one if we can find.
Yeah,
the
what-
item
what-
number.
Yeah,
what's
it's
the
the
rough end?
classroom sound field. It's the classroom sound field, I think.
Yeah.
It's the class, it's 74. I think that's what you're talking about, Charlie.
Yes.
Yeah.
74.
So
Oh,
I'll send
so
you
that's
a note on this.
That's the
Amplification
sound
system?
amplification. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So just so you know, Charlie, do you even, you know what that is? Does everyone know what that is? It's like a TopCat system, right? I don't know, Lorraine, that's a brand name, but it's a
Yes.
TopCat system that, I mean, in my experience, any recent projects we've put it in, again, back to universal design, back to not having the students who need the amplification from an audio understanding standpoint have to be in certain classrooms. They could be in any classroom, and every teacher wears the amplification and anyone can use it as needed, but basically it amplifies the teacher's voice so that anyone in the room can hear better, and specifically to those who may need it in every space. It allows them to be taught in any classroom, not just that class, 1 or 2, 5%, no less than 1. So that's what that is. So I think the suggestion is that it's roughed in and that you have to find the money under FF&E to be able to buy that out. And as you can see, it's a substantial amount. But do you need more than that, Charlie, on that one,
Well,
74?
Probably not. It's probably not.
Yeah, if you Google TopCat amplification system, you'll see what it is. It basically sits in a 2x4 ceiling system, and the teacher wears a lanyard essentially around their neck that provides amplification. Okay, Alexa has to run. What else do we need more information on so that our next meeting, hopefully we can move right into this. I had hoped we would have more time today to do some of this. So it's great that we want more information. Let's ask the designers either now or ahead of next meeting so that they have time to get us what we need.
Just a point of clarification here. So we've got a select board meeting.
Yeah,
next
Monday.
Next Monday on the 12th. And Hill and SMMA will be there to provide information. And so I guess what I want clarity on here is what exactly we're presenting for options. So right now we have the current cost option, and then we have option C. Is that settled for the back to budget cost? Because we're talking about spending more time on option B after the meeting. You know, we're not gonna spend more time on option B before Monday.
Right.
Right.
Well, it sounds like we need to go item by item through these to get there. So yes, there's more time needed. I think I don't know if anyone wants to put a number out there that we're trying to get to, or if it's a general understanding that it'll be somewhere between A and C. More than C, less than A.
I think at this point, that's what you need to tell them, because we don't have enough detail yet.
Okay, thank you, Peter.
You need to tell them that we've got some things on the list that we're looking at. The
Yeah.
select board doesn't believe that we're looking closely enough at this project. And the only thing we could do for the back to budget option is to swap out some of the yellows for the non-yellows. I mean, this is what our professionals are recommending gets us back to the base budget. And we need to maybe the only thing we can do today is to say we are not comfortable with these items, all of these items. We want to go through it and identify a mid-range. We still need time to go through it and identify a mid-range. Matt Root, you have your hand up.
Yeah, I see. Hold on. Peter, was that all you had to say, or did you have? I see Peter, Matt, Charlie, and the other Matt Root.
Yeah,
Matt,
just real quick. I just want to make sure that as we go through this list, we clearly understand maintenance issues associated, increasing costs associated with that, because I think it's really important to present that to the town in those cases. That's all I got. Thanks.
Thank you. Matt Johnson.
My expectation for the next select board meeting presentation was really the focus on the special town meeting, whether we needed to open a warrant, and if so, when, for a special town meeting. So I don't know that we have to have any kind of definitive plan B proposal that is in front of the group. The two other points while I have the floor, one is, I wonder if we could speed this process along between now and the next middle school building committee meeting by just polling our members on these items for what they would include in a plan B. So that then we can just bring that back, and that might speed the discussion because we can see which items are kind of more consensus items, realizing that there are a couple that have been identified as needing more detail. And then the third thing I would say is, just given the very strong constituencies that we heard from for both the gym and the auditorium being increased in size, my fear about combining the reductions in those spaces with the rest of our VE proposal is that, those groups advocating for their component of the design at special town meeting would then eliminate the possibility of us getting VE for the rest of these concepts. So I certainly, there's ways at special town meeting to make an amendment and all that stuff, but I don't know if we just create the gym and the auditorium as sort of plan, B prime or something, so that there is still a plan that doesn't go after those spaces, but that still goes after some of these other potentially more, common sense types of items.
Thank you, Matt, for clarifying the select board conversation, and I think that provides clarity to you. When you say polling, do you mean like informal, like send out a
Well, just
survey?
send it out
Or is
and
that-
just say to people, mark the ones that you want, that you would include in a plan B, and those that you strongly feel should not be, and then that would just give a real strong sense of like, okay, I feel I must, I really want that to be in plan B. I don't really know, or I don't care, or I really absolutely would be against putting that in. That's what I'd like to see for, each of the yellow items. And then if we came back with like tallies for that, and we saw, well, everybody is good with stainless steel ballards, then we don't even have to talk about it. It's part of plan B.
Yeah, that makes sense, and sort of what we're aiming to get towards. So thank you for making that suggestion. Great. Charlie.
Yeah, I want to support Matt's comment. I also think that we ought to do our best. Plan B ought to be our best shot at VE, the VE line items, and we ought to have a second one that's got the gym and auditorium changes in it as well. But again, the ones that we think are appropriate, not the ones that reflect necessarily the whole amount. Also, I have a question about the gray items. You have yellow and you have gray. Now, what if we wanted to pull in a gray items? Is that still
Yeah,
open?
it is. The yellow was just a professional suggestion.
And I would
So we
also
can certainly
suggest
talk about
that,
the gray.
I would also suggest that we do the line item review, even with the polling, that we do the line item review, and that none of these are really necessarily, I don't think any of them are really no-brainers. I think we should go through them as a matter of due diligence. I don't think we should try to do a vote, because people have comments about these that may be illuminating to others. So I think, again, go through each item.
I'm sorry.
Thank you, Troy.
I think I was
Steve.
next. I
Yep,
just
you
wanted
are.
to really quick. We need to make this simple for the voters, right? For whoever's going to be at town meeting. So I was hoping to just go toward 2 options rather than 3 because of what Peter said. You know, if we present, oh, spend the whole thing, or you could do our best estimate plan B, or you could do the pain plan C, everybody's going to go to plan B, obviously. So can we just go towards what Charlie is saying and say, put our best plan forward, make that plan A. Now introduce Matt's idea of we can save another 1.9 by reducing the size of the gymnasium auditorium, plan B. Plan C would be take everything and we can agree on the everything list. That's all I'll say. I'm having a really hard time with this one. Sorry.
I think A was still out there because we've heard from others that they believe they voted on a building at the previous special town meeting and ballot. So just trying to honor kind of the work that had been done to get there. I'm not saying it's the right thing or not. I just think that that's still why it's on the table, Steve, to clarify.
Do you think we could, I'd like to hear others' thoughts. Could we make a plan A, meaning all the VE that we think we can accept? Plan B include not the gym and the gymnasium, and plan C be the 102.8. Would that be something that we can all sort of try to get to just one plan that we think is the best plan, even though it is over budget and we'll ask for them more money? Or what do people think?
Do I have to be asked to because I haven't had up? I'll just make a quick comment. I think you're precisely exactly right. That we want plan A to be the best shot at VE, plan B to be the VE that is the best shot plus our best shot at space. And whatever you want for the last plan that shows everything, fine. But I think that the ones that we want the town really to think about are the first 2. So I agree with you, Steve. You've got it exactly correct, in my opinion.
Heather, I see your hand. Thank you, Charlie.
I wasn't answering that question, so I don't know if you want to finish that. I just wanted.
Well, hold on. Does
Go
anyone
ahead.
else have any? Steve, I think you're headed in the right direction for what it's worth. But I don't know if anyone else has comments or disagrees or agrees. So happy to.
All I would say is you don't need a vote for Plan C. Plan C is
Plan
de
C is
facto
what it
we
is.
would get.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, it's just an understanding of what that building looks like for the community, Matt, right?
That's right. That's the
Yeah.
background against making the decision, is to show them what that would be. Yeah.
Right, because it
There's
is
no vote for
different
that. So
than
there's
what
really
we're-
only 2 things in front of town meeting. The thing that I think is key is not to have 3 things in front, which is, I don't know that we even want to put forward the August 4th plan at this point. Right? We want to put together something that's tighter than that and suggest that as an alternative.
Okay.
Thank
you, Matt.
But that's my feeling, and I think that's what Steve was saying, but I'm not sure. Because in that case, we would have the August 4th, that's so-called, what we have been calling Plan A. Plan B is our consensus, what we're trying to achieve now in this discussion. And I've suggested then that we also have one that separates out doing the gym in the auditorium or not. And then the last one is not even a thing to vote on, so.
Yeah, so just for clarity, I think in my mind, there still are 3 things, and here's what they are. C is what you're saying. It doesn't need a vote, but it's an understanding of what that building now looks like, because it's different than what it was proposed as back when the town voted on it at special town meeting. It's different, right? Because of circumstances that are not necessarily under our control. So it looks different. So just having an understanding of that, whether or not it needs to be put forward at a town, I think we just, whether it's at public meetings or whatever, like we need to show the community what that plan looks like. Then there's the plan that was voted on, but it's a different cost. And there may be some, you know, and that's kind of plan A or option A, but that's with some additional value management that we all thought made sense despite, you know, that's essentially the building that was voted on, not the budget, but the building, the design, with some changes that made sense that we all agreed to take. And then there's what we're trying to get to, which is that middle ground. So for me, there's still sort of three things, and whether they need voting, C does not from a budget standpoint, but an understanding of what that building is. So I think it just needs to be part of the story, the explanation, the understanding that we put out to the community is things are different than they were when we voted, and here's what that looks like. So I don't know, that's how I'm wrapping my head around like different, and I'm not saying they all need votes, or I'm not saying they all need to be, you know, put forward at special town meeting, but they all need to be explained to the community. And I just want to point out it's 9:58, and Heather, your hand is up.
Yeah, so I guess I'll respond to that conversation first quickly, because I think it's a good distinction what that plan A is. I will just voice quickly that we have had many residents, we've had several comments from people saying, please do not cut further from, you know, what was proposed before. So if our plan A is the August 24th plus extra VM, I think we have to be very careful about what that extra VM is, based on those comments. And I do see the point that, I forget who made it first, but Matt and others have made about making the gym and auditorium a separate option from the other VM, because there might be things that we do want to go through, even if the gym and auditorium don't go through. So how we've defined that is not easy, I know. And maybe that's still three options. But what I wanted to comment on was about the upcoming select board meeting. And I guess back to what I brought up earlier, and it wasn't the time to discuss it, but timing. And if the select board is discussing whether to start the process for town meeting now, I think it's important as a committee that we reiterate that time is of the essence, because if we don't know if the special town meeting is happening, or if the process doesn't start soon and we can't continue to move forward, this whole thing bumps back. And for instance, even one of the VM items could become not an option, because that's about shortening the time frame by 2 months. And if we're pushing things back because we can't have a special town meeting yet, we not only can't be shortening the time frame, we might have to be lengthening the time frame, and then that's costing us more. So I just wanted to bring up timing and see if we can reiterate to the select board that timing is actually critical here, for us to get that special time meeting process started.
Thank you, Heather.
I put up on the screen what we had for previous assumptions for the town process on the last schedule update. I didn't change this, and these can be refined a bit, but this was the general outlook for the process.
Okay, and we'll be sure to bring that up, Heather, and talk at length about what that means. So, okay, so sounds like we have a lot to talk about at our next meeting as far as getting deep into what our, let's call it option B scenario will be. And if anyone after this meeting needs more information on any of these items, yellow or gray, please feel free to email Pat and we will ask the professionals to come with that information so we can have a fruitful discussion. I'm hoping that's the only thing on the agenda or the bulk of it, because we need to, I was hoping we'd get to more than we did today. So apologies that it didn't play out the way that we had hoped as far as getting deeper into discussing a lot of these. And I just want to not skip over agenda items. So is there anything?
Just, sorry to interrupt,
Yeah.
but there
I'm
was
just trying
talk
to-
about polling or trying to get people
Pat
feedback.
Pat and I will have to email the committee, and she and I will discuss. And if we need something out of you guys, Ian, we'll request it. But it may just be as simple as having folks email us back so we can keep tabs on it. I'm not just like a survey person personally.
You can mark up this document too, if you want.
Yeah. So Pat and I will strategize that. Yep. Okay, quickly, is there anything on communications, Heather? Outreach?
No, I don't think anything else anything we're ready to discuss yet.
Yeah, okay, new business, anyone? No?
Dawn, we just
Oh,
need clarity on the next meeting date, I think.
yeah, that was after public comment, but we can
Okay,
move it.
sorry.
No, that's okay. When are we meeting again, everyone? Oh my God, the sun, I apologize. I'm like being blinded. When, I think we have on scheduled, is it the 22nd? It was what I saw on my calendar. The 2 weeks from, no, yeah, 2 weeks from now, but do we need one next week? What do folks think? Can people meet next week?
I feel like we kind of have to keep moving forward. We all have to go through.
I agree, Heather. I think we need to keep moving forward.
Yep, agreed. I just didn't know what folks' schedules look like. So I can do next week. So let's say, Matt, I see your hand. Do you have a problem with next Thursday?
No, I don't, but I just was saying for the select board meeting, if you come in, hopefully there will be something, having discussed with the town clerk and the moderator about, the specific potential dates for the town meeting, special town meeting calendar. Just because if we're supposed to take an action as a select board, we can only do that if we have specific dates. So who knows, maybe that can happen in September, our meeting on September 16th instead of the one next, or the next meeting, I think it's 19th instead of one next week. But I don't know if time's of the essence there. So just putting that in front of the co-chairs. And
So are you looking to us to have information from the town clerk? I thought the select board was looking for information from the town clerk and.
well, I guess we could, if you give us the guideline that you want, I guess you're trying to schedule the finance committee hearing after the 60% estimate is received and back schedule and forward schedule from there.
Yeah.
Is that the principle?
Yeah. I think yes.
Okay. So I think we will have to huddle with all the different parties, the finance chair, the town clerk, the moderator, to see what dates are feasible. Okay.
Do you have what you need then, Matt, or do you need something more from Pat now?
Yeah, I'll probably follow up with you all.
Okay. All right, that sounds
to
good.
say that if we're going to talk about that at the next select board meeting, we need real dates. I don't think we can talk about theoreticals.
Okay. Okay, let us know what you need from us and loop us into the conversation, Matt. Okay, so we decided next meeting was next Thursday at 7:30 a.m., correct? I just put it in the chat because Lorraine was saying she could do next week. Okay, good. Public comment. Anyone? I'll give it another couple seconds. If anyone's stuck with us this long, thank you. I see a few names, so we appreciate it. Okay, all right. With that, I'm going to call the meeting adjourned, and we'll see everyone next Thursday for a deep discussion on the items to get us to a plan B or more. So thank you all so much for your time today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. We'll see you in a week.